This is TradeFlow News, bringing you relevant news and insights from around the world. TradeFlow News, enabling trade for SMEs and economies worldwide.
These are some of the key topics that we will be looking into in today's program.
First, let's take a look at the overnight headlines which are impacting the commodity markets.
The world's biggest economies said on Thursday they were looking into releasing oil from their strategic reserves, following a rare request from the United States for a coordinated move to cool global energy prices. The U.S. move reflects frustration with the Organization of the Petroleum Exporting Countries, OPEC, and allies such as Russia who have rebuffed Washington's requests to speed up oil production as the world economy rebounds from the pandemic. It also comes as U.S. President Joe Biden fends off political pressure ahead of midterm elections next year over rising gasoline prices and other costs driven by the recovery.
Oil prices slid to 6-week lows on Thursday before recovering some ground, as China said it was moving to tap reserves after a Reuters report that the United States was asking large consuming nations to consider a stockpile release to lower prices. The bid by the U.S. to cool markets, asking China to join a coordinated action for the first time, comes as inflationary pressures, partly driven by surging energy prices, start to produce a political backlash. Brent crude was down 42 cents, or 0.5%, to $79.86 a barrel by 12:17 GMT, after earlier dropping to $79.28, the lowest since October 7.
Moving on to the top news in the energy sector.
U.S. crude stocks fell unexpectedly last week as refineries, enjoying strong margins due to higher fuel prices, ramped up output ahead of the winter heating season, the Energy Information Administration said on Wednesday. Crude inventories fell by 2.1 million barrels in the week to November 12, compared with analysts' expectations for an increase of 1.4 million barrels. That came even though the United States released more than 3 million barrels of crude from its strategic reserve for the second consecutive week as the Biden administration sought ways to reduce overall fuel costs. Refiners started to process more crude barrels and exports increased in the most recent week, suggesting generally strong demand for U.S. oil.
China's diesel exports fell in October after a rebound the previous month as refiners diverted more supplies to the domestic market to make up for a supply squeeze following months of production curbs. China shipped abroad 560,000 tons of diesel last month, down 74% from the same period last year and down from 780,000 tons in September. Data from the General Administration of Customs showed on Thursday. Chinese refiners cut fuel output in the third quarter because of COVID-19 curbs and floods, but diesel consumption rebounded, partly triggered by a widespread power crunch that caught the market by surprise that even prompted rare imports of the fuel. Next, we have the top news in metal markets. Global silver demand will rise to 1.029 billion ounces this year, up 15% from 2020 and exceeding a billion ounces for the first time since 2015, the Silver Institute said in a report on Wednesday. The prediction is a slight downgrade from April, when the institute forecast demand for 2021 at 1.033 billion ounces. The coronavirus sharply reduced use of silver by manufacturers and jewelers but increased demand from investors who wanted a safe asset to ride out economic turbulence.
The United Arab Emirates, UAE, said on Thursday it would launch a responsible sourcing scheme for gold refiners in February and planned to publish monthly gold import and export data, part of a push to increase transparency and combat illicit trading. The UAE is one of the world's biggest bullion trade hubs and has come under pressure to tighten regulation. The London Bullion Market Association, LBMA, for example, has said it could blacklist countries that lack adequate oversight, restricting their access to the mainstream gold trade. The UAE had previously told Reuters the standard would be made compulsory for refiners as part of a strategy to gradually bring the whole UAE gold industry in line with responsible sourcing standards.
We will now look at the top news in the agricultural sector.
Canadian exporters of commodities from grain to fertilizer and oil scrambled on Wednesday to divert shipments away from Port of Vancouver, which floods have isolated, but they found few easy alternatives. The disaster, which has killed at least one person, has caused the latest blockage in the congested global supply chain, driving up inflation fears ahead of the holiday shopping season. A month's worth of rain in 2 days caused floods and mudslides in British Columbia that wrecked highways and 2 critical east-west rail lines owned by Canadian National Railway County and Canadian Pacific Railway, leading to Canada's busiest port.
That is all for today's news on commodity markets. Stay tuned to TradeFlow News as we continue to provide you with more updates. We also invite you to follow us on Twitter at TradeFlow News, which allows you to watch our program on your mobile device or desktop to receive information from there.